Travel along, Catholic pilgrims, as we read letters from the voyages of St. Frances Cabrini as she traveled around the Western Hemisphere sharing the good news of Christ. Welcome back, Catholic pilgrims. Today we will be finishing up this first letter to the Teachers' College in Rome, which means that I will have a short reflection when we are done. Let's just go ahead and jump right in by opening to page 302 and starting on the second paragraph. The journey from Seattle to Denver is very interesting. One passes through cities all so different from one another. In Utah, I saw the lakes and the mountains of salt of a transparent milk color. But more interesting still, it is to see the Indian reserves. The territories where the United States government confines the Indians are called Indian reserves, as the Indians are not allowed to live with the whites. They are allowed in the towns now and then to sell their merchandise. Some time ago, when hatred still existed between the red man and the white, only one Indian woman, Angelina by name, was allowed to enter the city of Seattle, and I will tell you why. Amongst the many idols that the Indians adore, some of them have truly repugnant appearances. Now it happened that the white men carried off one of these, and it still stands in a square of Seattle. This idol represented a deformed gnome, and, with other smaller monsters, formed a column. The Indians were so exasperated that they swore to avenge the profanation and to vindicate the honor of their idol by the destruction of the town. But Angelina was a sweet, good-hearted woman and did not want so much bloodshed. So, crossing mountains and valleys and risking other dangers, she entered the city at night. The white men, having been warned, were thus prepared to defend themselves against the attack of the Indians. So they never forgot the kindness of Angelina. She was therefore allowed the privilege of going into the town at any time and of lodging at any hotel at the government's expense. She was called the Queen of the Queen City. It seems a small thing to us, but to the Indians it was quite a big affair, of which even today they are proud. I have passed near the reserve called Kiar d'Alin because of the ferocious nature of this tribe. Though they retain a few of their old habits, they are now more civilized owing to the progress of religion, especially through the apostolate of the Jesuit fathers. There is much to be done yet, for there are still many ridiculous and shameful superstitions amongst them. When an Indian dies, all the friends are called to weep over the corpse, whether they want to or not. They even have to chant their grief in a more or less monotonous strain like this. You were very good, oh, 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 you had a lovely house, ah, ah, ah. You may imagine what the rest of the chant is like and continued throughout the dead of night. When the morning dawns, the chief arrives, and they beg him to tell them if the deceased has gone to heaven or to hell. Then he commands them to fetch him a bowl of bread and water. They hold this strange belief that while the corpse is on earth, it needs nothing, but if it goes to hell, it has to be provided with bread and water, as these items are not to be found in hell. If the dead is destined for heaven, it needs nothing, so it does not return to take bread and water. Naturally, the deceased does not return for its bread and water. Consequently, the tribe concludes it has gone to heaven and makes merry over it, partaking of a great banquet. Poor souls! These are they for whom Christ shed so much blood, who so much grieved his heart in his sorrowful agony when he saw, in all the horror of his imminent passion, the uselessness of his agony for so many souls. Oh, how bitter to the Sacred Heart was such a thought! How painful those stripes, thorns, and nails of the cross! If it were only possible for us to console the Divine Heart, to comfort him, and to become victims for the salvation of souls that cost such a dear price. Such comfort we can give to Jesus. All of us can devote ourselves to this enterprise by means of prayer. Let us be generous in our little sacrifices to our Lord for the success of Catholic missions. Perhaps one day, when we ourselves are gathered into the eternal tabernacle, we shall meet many souls who will tell us that they owe their eternal happiness to us. The Indian woman, as in all those nations which have not received the light of faith, has to work while the man quietly smokes his pipe. The poor woman and mother of many little ones, who are too small to stand, is forced to tie her offspring around her waist in a sack, and in this unconventional way has to do her washing. If the baby cries, she moves it with a shrug of her shoulders and thus quiets it. This is the way the Indian baby is fondled. See how grateful we should be to Christianity, which has raised the dignity of woman, reestablishing her rights unknown to the pagan nations, until Mary Immaculate, the woman by excellence, foretold by the prophets, sighed for by the patriarchs, desired by the people, dawn of the Son of Justice, had appeared on earth. What was woman? But Mary appeared, this new Eve, true mother of the living, elected by God to be the co-redemptrix of the human race, and a new era arose for woman. She is no longer a slave, but equal to man, no longer a servant, but mistress within her domestic walls, no longer the object of disdain and contempt, but raised to the dignity of mother and educator on whose knee generations are built up. All this we owe to Mary. And in the midst of the tenderness that naturally arises in our hearts for such a pious, amiable, good, and condescending mother, ever ready to listen to our prayers, ever ready to come to our aid, we must not forget what Christian society owes to her, and consequently, what our obligations are to her. Mary derives all her greatness from Jesus. If it was her boast that she become the mother of the Redeemer, to her also, as the Holy Father has said, was consigned the office of guarding and preparing the victim of the human race. Mary was the mother of Jesus, not only in the joy of Bethlehem, but also on Calvary, where she not only contemplated the cruel spectacle, but rejoiced at seeing her Son offered for the redemption of mankind. Thus did she most worthily merit to become the co-redemptrix. If, then, we wish to reach the height of the importance of our mission, let us banish all vanity and levity, and remember that we shall only be true women when, by the discharge of the principal duties that are imposed upon us, we become the true educators of society, angels of the family, and faithful imitators of Mary Immaculate. But what have you to do to imitate her? I should love you to look upon your morning star, Mary, and become so many copies of Mary Immaculate. Cast an interior glance on your mother, and if your eyes cannot sustain the vivid light that radiates from her, listen to what St. Anselm says of her. Mary was docile, spoke little, she was always composed, was never heard laughing aloud, nor ruffled or disturbed. She persevered in the reading of the sacred scriptures, in mortification, and in the works of mercy. St. Ambrose says, her movement was not indolent, her walk not too quick, her voice not affected or sharp. The composure of her person showed the beauty and harmony of her interior. It was a wonderful spectacle to see with what promptness and diligence she performed her domestic duties, to which she applied herself with great solicitude, but always with tranquillity and great peace. Her forehead was serene, and a modesty more celestial than terrestrial pervaded her every movement. Her words were few and always dignified, prudent, and joyful. In Mary, all and everything was well regulated. Holy Church in her earliest days appeared to be all concentrated in Mary. All hearts turned to her, all hopes after Jesus were placed in her. She was the ark animated by God that contained the law of the new alliance, the living rule of the precepts and counsels of Jesus Christ, the treasure of the wisdom and knowledge of God. The difficulties of the primitive church were just the same after 20 centuries, and it is not to be wondered at, for Christ has always been the sign of contradiction. And so it must be with his spouse, the church, in this vale of misery and tears. Do not fear difficulties. Let us raise our eyes to our heavenly star. Let us call upon Mary. She is to us what she was to the apostles and first Christians. Let us honor this immaculate dove, and let us trust her with unlimited trust. The eyes of her soul and mind are turned towards us. Her eyes are sharper and more penetrating than those of the prophets and seers of Judah, more perfect than those of the ecstatic of Patmos, higher than the angelic hierarchies. How admirable is Mary Immaculate! Let us abandon ourselves into her hands. She is, I repeat, our august Queen and Mother. under her mantle we shall be safe. At Denver, I found the school, which I opened only a year ago, quite flourishing. The cheerful predictions made by the good bishop on that occasion have been succeeded by realization, and now this zealous pastor wants us to found an orphanage for Italian orphans, who are very numerous in Colorado owing to the disasters that befall the poor miners. In 2 days, I made a rapid journey from the capital of Colorado through Texas to Louisiana. Even here, what beauties of nature are visible, a pale image of Him who is the eternal beauty, and who, to testify His predilection for us, has willed to spread them over the earth. For hours we ran through very narrow chasms called canyons, which are renowned all the world over. They consist of perpendicular walls of inaccessible height which seem to touch the sky, whilst below the river flows in zigzag fashion, alternately impetuous and calm, reflecting in its pure water of variegated colors the most wonderful rocks I have ever seen. It is impossible to describe them. A brush that attempted to paint them in all their reality would be considered bold. These rocks do really excite one's wonder. They even change color at different times of the day and assume colors and tints that even the most skilled artist could not hope to reproduce. They are the work of the immortal artist whose existence men dare to deny and to forget, while the powerful and wonderful works of his hands speak so eloquently. The immense plains of Texas, the greater part of which, owing to the rapid extension of the state, is uninhabited, are most fertile, rich in vegetation, and suitable for every kind of cultivation. These virgin lands are of a reddish color, full of life and promise, and seem to await our Italian immigrants, who go more willingly to the populous states of the north, whereas here, ease and a life more like that in Italy awaits them. There are some Italian colonies already, especially in Louisiana, where they are employed in the cultivation of cotton, rice, and sugar, whilst on the outskirts of New Orleans they gain a livelihood by the cultivation of vegetables. In the latter town there are about 30,000 Italians. You can imagine, then, whether you have not much work to do. The schools hold 700 children, and as our houses had not sufficient room, the Archbishop made us a present of another a few weeks ago. But I must think of the orphans, for they are increasing in number. I am engaged on this work at present. When I have finished here, I shall return to Colorado for a little while. Then I shall go on to Chicago, and from there to New York, to embark for Italy. To my regret, I shall not find you at Rome on my return, for by the time you have received this, you will already have entered on your exams, and these will be succeeded by the holidays, which will be for some of you the end of your scholastic studies. So this is a very busy time. But you have done your best. You have studied with diligence, so be calm and quiet, and you will do even better. Have confidence in God and Our Lady, and they will help you to pass with honors. I wish you all the fullest success. You deserve to be crowned with success, for you are very good and of great promise. It is unnecessary for me to tell you to pray, as I know you do so, and that you pray from your heart. This consoles me very much, because prayer is the weapon which will not only defend you, but will help you at the present and throughout your life. It is the key of the celestial treasures. It is the channel through which grace comes to you. As long as you pray, you will be safe. Blessed Canisius says, "He who prays is on the road to heaven." Never forget this shield, this powerful weapon which will secure for you ultimate victory. In great success, pray, and you will take your success moderately, for pride comes before a fall. In defeat, pray also, and trust will return, and you will become strong with the strength of God. Pray for yourselves, for those entrusted to your care, for the world, for the church. Make a practice of prayer, and if you reach that degree of sweetness of prayer which is found in intimate converse with God, you will never have discomfort or despair. Dark clouds will not trouble for long the serenity of your souls. Obey the precepts of Jesus Christ. Pray and pray always, and God will do His part in you and will fulfill His promises. Ask, and you shall receive. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. And now goodbye, my dear children. I shall not have the pleasure of seeing you, but when you come to Rome, you must visit the sisters. And then I shall have the pleasure of congratulating you on the diplomas you have obtained and the progress you have made in knowledge and virtue. To those who will return after the holidays, let one say a heartfelt au revoir. And to the others whom I see leaving us, I say regretfully, though with confidence, the words of our divine Savior, which are full of wisdom, "Go and bear fruit, and your fruit shall remain." May the Sacred Heart of Jesus bless you in all the vicissitudes of life. May the Divine Heart be for you always the door of salvation in which is found shelter, help, and comfort. May the mantle of Mary shelter you all. May she clothe you with her virtues, keep you under the shadow of her protection. I, seeing you entrusted to Jesus and Mary, shall fear nothing, but shall implore the blessing of heaven upon you. Yours most affectionately, in Corde Jesus. Francis Xaveria Cabrini, New Orleans, May 31st, 1904. I'm willing to bet that as I was reading Mother Cabrini's words describing different practices and objects of the Native American tribe in Seattle, that some of you felt a bit uncomfortable. In our modern sensibilities, many people deem it rude, offensive, and morally wrong to call another culture's practices bad or untrue. But the truth of the matter is that not all practices are good, and not all religious beliefs are true. To pretend otherwise is not helping anyone. In fact, it is at best indifferent towards the state of people's souls, and at worst, it is unloving. Superstitions are not good. They just aren't. And superstitious behavior is not just found in Native American practices. You can find it everywhere, even in Catholic circles. To quote Dr. David Anders in an interview on Catholic Answers, he says, quote, "Superstition is not uniquely Catholic or a Christian vice. It is a human vice, and it probably is the result of certain adaptive mechanisms in human psychology. Augustine himself understood superstition as the tendency to think that some process could be some ritual, some action, some gesture that could manipulate the unseen world because it possessed intrinsically some signifying convention." All right. So he actually talks in non-Christian doctrine. Augustine says, if someone says to you, "Here, eat this herb when your stomach hurts, it will make you feel better," that's not superstitious. But if they said, "Here, hang this herb around your neck because it looks like a stomach," then that would be superstitious. It's the signifying convention rather than some natural property that he understood to be the essence of superstition, unquote. Now, I know that's a lot packed in there, so I will link the two things I'm going to quote in the show notes. So with that, I want to cover the sacramentals. The Catechism states that the sacramentals are sacred signs instituted by the Church to prepare us to receive the fruit of the sacraments and to sanctify different circumstances of our lives. Sacramentals, such as blessed objects, blessings, or actions, like signing ourselves, are not to be used in a superstitious way. Reading from an article on EWTN, it says, quote, "Sacramentals are not superstitions, holdovers from pre-Christian days, or Catholic substitutes for the longing of pagans to dance around the trees and mutter spells. There is a part of us that longs for something tangible that we can hold on to, something to look at, something to touch, something to sing, chant, or recite, something that interacts with the senses. The sacraments, those sacred mixtures of matter and the Holy Spirit, fulfill that need. And so, in a lesser way, do sacramentals. So what is the difference between correct use of the sacramental and superstition? It has to do with an inner attitude, for superstition is second cousin to magic. The superstitious person says, "If I sprinkle holy water here, say these prayers and cross myself, I will make God or his saints do this for me." But the person using a sacramental properly says, I want to be closer to God, to be constantly and effectively reminded of the power of His love and glory, of His protection, forgiveness, and mercy. So I will cross myself when I pass a church to remind myself of His passion. I will make a novena to ask God's saints for their prayers. I will do these things not because I am strong and have the power to make God and His saints do my will, but because I am weak, distractible, and forgetful, and need to remind myself of true reality." Unquote. So we must be very careful to use sacramentals not as lucky charms or lucky incantations, but as reminders to draw our hearts and minds to God and to pray to Him and ask that His will be done. That is all for this letter, Catholic Pilgrims. I will see you back here soon for the next letter written to the Teachers College in Rome. And until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.